The ocean has always been both mother and executioner. It feeds, it shelters, it inspires, but it also takes, it drowns, it erases. For as long as humans have walked shorelines, they have looked at horizon with awe and with fear, knowing that behind its shimmering beauty lay a power indifferent to survival. To speak of the ocean's most tragic days is to speak of moments when this power revealed itself without mercy, when whole communities were swallowed, when fleets vanished, when tides rose like mountains and erased cities in a single breath. These are not only tales of destruction, they are revelations, mirrors held up to humanity showing our fragility and our hubris. They are reminders that we are not rulers of this world but tenants of coasts, and rent is paid in humility. Imagine first the dawn of memory, when ancient peoples saw waves rise higher than any wall they could build. Myths of flood permeate nearly every culture, not by coincidence, but because memory of catastrophe is embedded in humanity itself. The story of Noah in the Near East, of Deucalion in Greece, of Manu in India, of Utnapishtim in Mesopotamia, all echo one another. Ocean rises, civilization drowns, a few survive to tell tale. These are not isolated inventions, they are trauma-remembered, whispers of real floods that reshaped landscapes and annihilated settlements. The first tragic days of ocean are recorded not in stone but in myth, because myth is humanity's black box, carrying memories across millennia when ruins have long dissolved. Geologists confirm that floods of biblical scale truly occurred. At end of last ice age, melting glaciers poured into seas, raising levels by tens of meters. Doggerland, a fertile plain connecting Britain to Europe, was drowned in this slow catastrophe, leaving only whispers of villages beneath North Sea. For those who lived there, it was not slow, it was final. One day fields fed families. The next, they were claimed by waves. Imagine waking to sound of ocean not at horizon but at doorstep. Imagine running with children, only to watch water swallow path before you. The sea had always been boundary, now it was executioner. These were tragic days remembered not in monuments, but in DNA, as descendants scattered and carried trauma forward. The Black Sea, too, tells tale. Once a freshwater lake, it was inundated when Mediterranean broke through Bosporus around 7,000 years ago. Archaeologists suggest this catastrophe may have inspired biblical flood. Imagine families on shores watching saltwater surge like avalanche, unstoppable, alien, killing crops, poisoning wells, or endless. For them, it was not natural process but wrath of gods. The ocean became adversary, no longer giver of fish but destroyer of homes. These were tragedies on continental scale, yet because they happened in deep time, they survive only as whispers in myth. But they were real, and they remind us that first tragic days were not isolated storms but shifts of planet itself, ocean rewriting coastlines with ruthless hand. But tragedy is not only ancient. In recorded history, ocean has risen in fury many times. The tsunami of Lisbon in 1755 is one of most devastating examples. On morning of All Saints' Day, churches were filled with worshippers when earthquakes struck offshore. Within minutes, waves taller than cathedrals surged into city, drowning tens of thousands. Survivors described bells tolling beneath water, bodies floating among crucifixes, candles extinguished by salt. Europe trembled not only at destruction but at meaning. If Holy City could be drowned during Mass, what did that say of divine protection? Philosophers from Voltaire to Kant grappled with question. The ocean's tragedy became crisis of faith, shaking enlightenment as much as it shook Lisbon. Japan, too, has known ocean's wrath. The tsunami of 2011 remains seared into memory. Cameras recorded waves sweeping inland, devouring houses, cars, lives. Thousands perished. Nuclear plant failed. Coast transformed forever. The ocean was no longer distant myth but immediate terror broadcast globally. We watched as families lost everything in seconds, as boats perched upon rooftops, as entire towns erased. It was modern tragedy, yet ancient in essence. Ocean reminding us of power. Technology could not stop it. Wealth could not resist it. Once more, ocean turned against its children. Philosophically, what makes these days tragic is not only loss of life, but revelation of truth. That permanence is illusion. Cities believe themselves eternal, but ocean erases them in moments. Lives plan futures, but waves claim them without warning. Our control is theater, ocean is playwright. Tragedy lies in contrast between our confidence and our fragility. Yet tragedy also transforms, forcing reflection. After Lisbon, Europe questioned God. After Japan, world questioned nuclear safety. After every flood, survivors questioned meaning of existence. Ocean's tragic days are harsh teachers, their lessons written in salt. Yet even within tragedy lies strange beauty. Survivors describe silence after wave as holy, as if world itself paused. They speak of resilience, of strangers helping one another, of communities rebuilding stronger. Ocean destroys, but it also reveals humanity's capacity to endure. Tragedy strips away illusions, but uncovers essence. We learn we are not kings of earth, but part of it, not rulers of ocean, but children dependent on its mercy. This humility, though born of suffering, is gift hidden in salt. So tonight, as you drift toward sleep, imagine ocean calm, gentle, reflecting stars. Beneath surface, however, memory stirs, memories of days when it rose like God, when it drowned cities, when it reshaped fate. Listen closely, and you may hear whispers of those tragic days, not to frighten but to remind. They remind you to live humbly, to love fiercely, to hold lightly, for permanence is illusion. They remind you that tragedy is not end but teacher, that ocean, though ruthless, is also wise. The most tragic days are written in water, but so are lessons, and if we listen, perhaps we need not repeat them. The ocean has always been mirror of possibility, promising trade, exploration, conquest, and discovery, but every promise carries shadow of peril. For every ship that returned with treasures, there were fleets that never came home, swallowed by waves without farewell. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell of ships transformed into tombs, of wooden hulls meant to carry life, becoming coffins drifting to abyss. These are stories where adventure turned to terror, where human ambition collided with sea's indifference, where names engraved in history are written not in ink but in salt water. From the earliest rafts to the mightiest galleons, every vessel has carried not only cargo but faith. Mariners entrusted their bodies and dreams to wood lashed together, confident it could resist force of storms. But storms do not negotiate. Ancient Greeks told of Odysseus tossed by Poseidon. Phoenicians whispered of fleets lost in sudden squalls. Vikings sang of ships shattered by waves that rose like cliffs. Each story blends myth with memory, because for those who witnessed ships sinking, it felt divine, beyond explanation, punishment from gods. In truth, it was nature reminding humanity of scale. Perhaps the most haunting example is the White Ship disaster of 1120, when heir to English throne, William Adelin, set sail across Channel. The ship struck rock, capsized, drowning prince and nearly all on board. A kingdom's future vanished in minutes, plunging England into chaos known as the Anarchy. One tragic night at sea rewrote politics of continent. Imagine parents ashore waiting for son destined to be king, only to learn his body lay beneath waves. Ocean did not only drown lives, it drowned dynasties. Centuries later, the Spanish Armada faced similar fate. Sent to conquer England in 1588, it was scattered by storms as much as by enemy. Galleons foundered on rocks, crews drowned in icy waters. Survivors described waves smashing ships like toys, winds tearing sails like parchment. Armada's defeat altered balance of Europe, yet ocean was decisive general. For sailors gasping in foam, it was not politics but finality. Their ships became tombs, their bones settled as ballast. The tragedies continued with Titanic in 1912, most famous shipwreck in modern imagination. Built as unsinkable, it struck iceberg and sank into Atlantic, taking over 1,500 souls. What makes Titanic haunting is not only scale but irony, pride in technology undone by indifference of ice. Survivors described music playing as decks tilted, stars reflected in calm sea as screams rose. Titanic was not only ship, it was symbol of modernity drowned in one night. Ocean humbled industrial age as surely as it humbled kings. The wreck now lies silent, a cathedral of rust, where fish glide through ballrooms and chandeliers rest in silt. It is not only grave but monument, whispering arrogance undone. World War also gave ocean tragic days beyond imagination. Convoys sunk by submarines, troop ships torpedoed, families drowned with soldiers. Lusitania in 1915, carrying civilians, was struck, plunging nearly 1,200 lives to bottom. Newspapers printed lists of lost, photographs of children smiling days before voyage. Their ship became tomb because war extended to sea. For ocean it was no different. Steel sinks like wood, cries sound same, abyss claims all. Philosophically, ships as tombs reveal fragility of ambition. Each vessel is microcosm of civilization, carrying hierarchy, culture, identity. When it sinks, entire world collapses. The tragedy lies not only in lives lost, but in dreams drowned. Titanic carried hopes of emigrants seeking new world. White Ship carried future of kingdom. Armada carried vision of empire. Lusitania carried innocence of civilians. Ocean drowns more than bodies. It drowns futures. Yet even in tragedy there is legacy. Shipwrecks become museums of time. Divers exploring wrecks feel awe at shoes resting upon seabed, plates still aligned upon shelves, letters sealed in silt. These artifacts are whispers, testimonies of lives lived, dreams lost. They remind us that ocean preserves even as it destroys, turning tombs into archives. To descend into wreck is to read chapter of human story, tragic but instructive. In your own life, you too have ships. Dreams you launch, projects you build, relationships you trust to carry you. Some sail, some sink. When they sink, you mourn, but like wrecks they leave traces, lessons, legacies. The tragedy is real, but so is continuity. You are archivist of your own shipwrecks, carrying whispers of lost voyages. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine yourself upon deck of ship. Stars shine, sea calm, yet you know beneath surface lie countless wrecks, silent, dignified. They are tombs, but they are also teachers. They remind you that pride must be tempered, that ambition must respect ocean, that permanence is illusion. Ships become tombs, but from tombs we learn humility, resilience, meaning. These are tragedies, but they are also truths, written in salt. The ocean has always been a sculptor of continents, carving coasts, raising reefs, breaking land into fragments. But sometimes its work is violent, sudden, devastating, erasing entire islands in single convulsion of earth and water. These are tragedies beyond comprehension, because an island is not only land but world entire, carrying homes, temples, memories, generations. When an island vanishes beneath sea, it is not mere geography that is lost, but identity, culture, belonging. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell of moments when islands disappeared overnight, leaving behind only myths and ghosts. One of the oldest tales comes from Greece, where island of Helice vanished in 373 BC. Once a thriving city, seat of Achaean League, devoted to Poseidon, it was struck by earthquake and consumed by tsunami. Ancient writers recorded that city was swallowed in single night, leaving only lagoon where fish swam among ruins. Pilgrims came for centuries to gaze at drowned columns, offering silent prayers to God who both protected and destroyed. Helice's tragedy became cautionary myth. Do not take sea for granted, for it remembers disrespect. Archaeologists rediscovered ruins in 20th century, proving myth true. Stones still whisper of night when island became grave. Similar fate befell Port Royal in Jamaica in 1692, known as wickedest city on earth, filled with pirates and merchants. It thrived until earthquake struck, liquefying soil and dragging half city into sea. Survivors described houses sliding into waves, people swallowed by earth, harbor boiling with corpses. Nearly 2,000 perished. For preachers, it was divine judgment upon vice. For historians, it was geology. For families, it was horror of watching streets vanish before eyes. Today, divers explore submerged ruins, finding wine bottles and coins resting where taverns once roared. Ocean turned city into tomb, and its story into sermon. In Pacific, 2 islands have vanished. Legends of Polynesia speak of lands once home to ancestors, now drowned. Oral traditions of Hawaii tell of Kane Hunamoku, floating island that sank after being angered by gods. In Maori tales, lands disappeared as punishment or transformation. These are not mere myths. Geology shows many islands truly drowned as sea levels rose or volcanoes collapsed. Survivors carried memory across canoes, embedding trauma in chant and song. Their myths are maps of tragedy, guiding identity long after land sank. Modern times give same lessons. In late 19th century, island of Krakatoa erupted. Explosion heard thousands of kilometers away, producing tsunamis that killed over 36,000. Most of island vanished, replaced by caldera. Survivors described sky black as night, waves towering, screams drowned by roar. It was apocalyptic day, ocean claiming island violently. Yet even here, continuity emerged. Anak Krakatau, child of Krakatoa, rose from sea decades later. Ocean destroys, but it also creates. Tragedy becomes cycle. The disappearance of islands is not only past, it is present. Rising seas now threaten Maldives, Tuvalu, Kiribati, nations entire facing fate of Hilike and Port Royal. For them, tragedy is not sudden but creeping, yet no less final. To lose island is to lose culture, history, sovereignty. Leaders speak of exile, of diaspora, of identity drowned. It is slow-motion tragedy, written in salt water rising centimeter by centimeter, erasing homelands built upon coral. The ocean continues to remind us of fragility of land. Philosophically, vanished islands symbolize impermanence of belonging. We believe in roots, in permanence of home, but ocean shows home can vanish overnight. Identity must be more than soil, culture more than stone, belonging more than coordinates. When islands drown, survivors carry identity within, proving that home is not fixed but portable. Memory carried in song and spirit. This truth is tragic, but it is liberating. We are more than land, we are continuity. Imagine tonight dreaming of standing on shore of island. Palms sway, fires burn, families laugh. Suddenly ground trembles, sea withdraws, horizon rises as wall of water. You run, but land cracks, houses vanish, waves consume. When silence returns, island is gone. Only foam remains. You wake in sweat, but dream is memory of countless who lived it. Their islands disappeared, but their whispers endure. The ocean's most tragic days remind us that islands are not eternal. They are gifts, fragile, fleeting. To live upon one is to live upon edge of abyss, beauty shadowed by risk. Yet perhaps that makes island life more precious, each day reminder of impermanence, each sunrise gift against uncertainty. Tragedy teaches value by revealing fragility, so as you drift to sleep, imagine islands not as fixed but as dreams, rising and sinking in rhythm of ocean. Some vanish, but memory floats. Islands disappear overnight, but stories endure for millennia. The ocean erases, but it also remembers. The ocean is restless even on calm days, always moving, always breathing. But there are times when its breath becomes roar, when its motion becomes violence, when storms rise from horizon, not as weather but as monsters. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell of tempests that devoured fleets, hurricanes that erased coasts, cyclones that claimed hundreds of thousands, storms so vast that they seemed to have consciousness, as if gods themselves had descended in fury. These are days when the sea stopped being water and became beast, when its rage redefined maps and memories. The ancients told of such monsters not as metaphors but as realities. In Homer's epics, Odysseus faced storms sent by Poseidon, winds that tore masts like twigs, waves that rose like mountains. Norse sagas spoke of Aegir, giant of sea, hosting banquets of drowned sailors. Polynesian chants described Tangaroa stirring waves when disrespected. These were not idle myths. They were attempts to explain storms that annihilated canoes, fleets, villages. For ancient mariners, storm was not weather system but deity with will. To survive was not matter of skill alone but of favor. History gives abundant confirmation. In 1354, a storm in North Sea sank more than 100 ships of Hanseatic League, drowning thousands of merchants, crippling trade. Chroniclers described it as apocalypse, waves crushing ships like toys, winds howling like demons. In 1639, the Battle of the Downs ended not with cannons but with storm that scattered fleets, leaving bodies and wreckage floating for weeks. For sailors who endured, storm was not mere hazard but nemesis. But perhaps the most tragic storms are hurricanes of modern era. In 1839, the Karinga cyclone struck India, generating storm surge that erased entire port, killing more than 300,000. Survivors told of walls of water sweeping inland, of families carried away, of land transformed to sea. In 1970, Cyclone Bola struck Bangladesh, killing over 500,000. The ocean rose not as wave but as world, submerging villages, drowning fields, erasing generations. These were not storms. They were monsters wearing masks of clouds and water. Philosophically, storms as monsters reveal truth about human perception. We anthropomorphize forces beyond control, calling them beasts, gods, demons, because their scale defies comprehension. Yet perhaps metaphor is accurate, for storms are alive in their own way, complex systems feeding on heat, growing, traveling, devouring. They have life cycles. They are born, they mature, they die. To encounter hurricane is to face creature of atmosphere, not mindless but purposeful. Its purpose is balance. Yet to us, it feels like cruelty. In literature, too, storms embody tragedy. Shakespeare's The Tempest opens with shipwreck, storm symbol of fate. Countless epics begin with tempest because storm is narrative shorthand for confrontation with inevitability. To face storm is to face truth. We are small, fragile, temporary. Yet within storm lies revelation. Survivors often describe awe, humility, even transcendence. To live through hurricane is to glimpse raw power of planet, to feel oneself both insignificant and profoundly alive. Imagine yourself in dream aboard ship as horizon darkens. Clouds rise like mountains, thunder cracks like splitting world, waves tower above mast, wind screams, rain lashes, timbers groan. You hold rope but realize rope is thread in hands of giant. You are at mercy of monster. Lightning flashes and for a moment you see waves shaped like face, storm itself looking at you. It is not metaphor but reality, storm alive, and you are nothing before it. You wake with heart pounding, but dream is memory of countless who lived it. Modern satellites show storms from above, swirling spirals vast as nations, eyes staring calmly from center. We give them names, Katrina, Haiyan, Sandy. Naming humanizes, but also acknowledges individuality. Each storm unique, each with story, each with victims. To say name is to recall tragedy. New Orleans drowned, Tacloban shattered, New York flooded. These are not statistics but scars upon humanity. The ocean breathed and thousands died. Yet even storms leave legacy beyond destruction. They reshape coasts, create new channels, redistribute nutrients. They remind us that destruction and creation are twins. For survivors, storms reveal resilience, communities rebuilding stronger, cultures embedding memory and ritual. In Caribbean, hurricanes are woven into music, in Pacific, into chant, in Gulf, into architecture. Storms become part of identity, scars worn as stories. In your own life, too, storms arise, not of weather but of circumstance, loss, betrayal, failure, illness. They feel monstrous, overwhelming, tearing structures you built, drowning hopes. Yet as with hurricanes, storms within you are alive, purposeful, transforming. They destroy illusions but reveal strength. They drown but also cleanse. They remind you of humility but also resilience. To survive is to carry scar, but also wisdom. So tonight, as you drift to sleep, imagine storm not only as monster but as teacher. It roars, it crushes, it destroys, yet it also reveals truth of impermanence, resilience, and continuity. The ocean storms are tragedies, but they are also revelations. They remind us we are children of sea, not masters. They remind us to live humbly, to prepare, to endure. The most tragic days when storms became monsters are not ends but lessons, written in wind and wave, teaching humility through terror. There are tragedies so vast they reshape nations, yet there are others so intimate they shatter hearts. Among the most haunting of the ocean's cruel days are those when the sea reached not only for ships and cities but for children. It is one thing to lose warriors in battle, sailors in storms, merchants in wrecks. It is another to watch youth claimed by waves before their lives began. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell of the moments when laughter was silenced, when innocence drowned, when parents stood helpless as tides stole future from their arms. Legends preserve memory of such days. In Norse sagas, fjords are haunted by voices of drowned children, victims of sudden squalls or careless crossings. In Celtic tales, mermaids are said to lure children to sea, not with malice but with hunger for companionship. Polynesian chants speak of islands swallowed by tsunamis where entire generations of children were lost. These myths are not invention. They are grief transformed into story, way for parents to endure unspeakable loss by weaving it into cosmic narrative. History confirms cruelty. In 1692, Port Royal sank during earthquake, and among thousands lost were countless children playing in streets when ground gave way. In 1883, Krakatoa's eruption and tsunami drowned tens of thousands, many of them children. Witnesses describe toys floating among corpses, small hands clinging to wreckage until waves pulled them under. In 2004, Indian Ocean tsunami killed over 200,000, half of them children. Beaches once filled with laughter became cemeteries of innocence. Survivors still speak of cries silenced in seconds, of parents searching for faces among endless rows of bodies. Ocean did not discriminate. It claimed most vulnerable first. Philosophically, these tragedies cut deepest because children embody future. To lose them is to lose possibility, continuity, hope. Civilizations can rebuild temples, fleets, fields, but when children drown, what is lost is tomorrow itself. That is why myths often speak of God's mourning, why cultures perform rituals for drowned youth. They are not only personal losses but collective wounds, civilization grieving its own continuity. Consider also smaller tragedies repeated endlessly along coasts. A child wandering too near surf, swept away by rogue wave. A family boat capsized, youngest unable to swim. These are not recorded in chronicles, yet they are part of ocean's archive of sorrow. Every village has stories of children lost to tide. Every family whispers names at graves without bodies. These tragedies accumulate, forming undercurrent of fear in coastal cultures. Parents warn children not with lectures but with tales of spirits, hoping fear will save where caution fails. Yet even in sorrow, resilience emerges. Communities create rituals to honor drowned children, transforming loss into continuity. In Mexico, fishermen place offerings for souls of lost youth. In Japan, dolls are floated down rivers to carry spirits of children drowned. In Pacific Islands, songs are sung annually, names remembered so they will not vanish. These acts do not erase pain but transmute it into legacy. Ocean stole bodies, but culture preserves presence. Imagine in dreams standing on shore at dusk. Families gather, torches lit, mothers singing names of children claimed by waves. They release lanterns upon water, lights drifting into horizon like stars upon sea. You realize each light is promise. Though bodies drowned, memory floats. The ocean stole children, but it cannot steal remembrance. This ritual becomes defiance, humanity refusing to let innocence vanish into silence. Philosophically, these tragedies remind us of fragility of joy. Laughter can vanish in heartbeat, innocence can drown in wave. To love is to risk loss, to parent is to live with fear. Yet to love despite risk is ultimate courage. Parents continue to raise children near sea, teaching them to swim, to respect tide, to honor ocean, even as they fear it. This courage is testament to resilience of humanity. The ocean may take, but it cannot break love. In your own life, think of dreams as children, fragile, innocent, needing protection. Some may be swept away by waves of circumstance, drowned before they mature. You grieve them, but you also honor them by remembering. Each dream lost is lantern upon your inner ocean, glowing softly. They are tragic, but they also illuminate. To live is to risk losing, but to live without risk is not to live at all. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine waves gentle, carrying lanterns of memory. Each lantern holds laughter of child, dream of parent, hope of culture. They float endlessly, refusing to sink. The ocean may steal children, but it cannot extinguish light of innocence. That light endures in memory, in ritual, in love. The most tragic days when sea stole children are not ends but transformations, painful yet profound, reminding us that even in loss there is continuity, even in sorrow there is meaning. The sea does not distinguish between village and empire. It does not bow before kings, nor does it respect monuments. For as long as human beings have raised cities along coasts, they have believed size or wealth could protect them. But the ocean is not impressed by crowns or armies. There have been days when entire empires felt the hand of the sea, when waves rose higher than walls and swallowed centuries of ambition in moments. These are among the most tragic days, not because a single ship or village was lost, but because civilizations that believed themselves eternal were reminded of their fragility. Consider first the Minoans, flourishing on Crete nearly 4,000 years ago. They built palaces filled with frescoes of dolphins. They sailed across Aegean with fleets. They worshipped goddesses of fertility. Then came eruption of Thera, modern Santorini, one of most violent explosions in recorded history. Ash-blackened sky, earthquakes shattered palaces, tsunamis surged across Aegean. Waves crashed into Crete, flooding ports, drowning ships, annihilating towns. The Minoans survived for a time, but their empire never recovered. Archaeologists see in this catastrophe seed of their collapse. Memory of Atlantis, myth of civilization erased by sea. For Minoans it was not myth but lived tragedy. Empire humbled by water. Centuries later, Rome too faced wrath of sea. While not destroyed entirely, many of its colonies along coasts were struck by tsunamis, ports erased, fleets shattered. The historian Ammianus described wave in 365 CE that struck Alexandria after great earthquake, retreating sea exposing ships stranded in mud, then roaring back to drown thousands. Markets, temples, homes erased in minutes. Survivors described it as day world ended, city consumed. Rome endured politically, but psychologically it was scar, reminder that even empire of emperors bowed before tide. Japan's Heian period also knew such tragedy. In 869, Sanriku earthquake produced tsunami that devastated Sendai Plain, drowning thousands, erasing fields, flooding temples. Chronicles recorded it as punishment from gods. Society scarred for generations. Later centuries brought more tsunamis, each humbling shoguns, destroying castles, drowning samurai. Empire of rising sun lived with shadow of ocean, its ambitions repeatedly erased. These tragedies shaped culture, embedding humility into art, resilience into architecture, ritual into religion. Even in modern times, empires have been scarred. The British Empire prided itself on navy that ruled seas, yet storms and wrecks humbled it repeatedly. The Bengal cyclone of 1737 struck colony with surge that drowned 300,000, crippling trade, revealing vulnerability of power. Newspapers spoke of fields of corpses, streets filled with water, empire helpless. For subjects, it was reminder that crown could not stop wave. For rulers, it was lesson that dominion over land did not extend to sea. Philosophically, these tragedies revealed truth. Empires are illusions of permanence. They carve laws into stone, mint coins with faces of rulers, raise monuments, believing themselves eternal. Yet, in face of wave, all crumble. Ocean erases not only walls but certainty. It whispers that greatness is fragile, that pride is temporary, that history is foam upon tide. To watch empire drown is to watch illusion shatter, to see humanity return to scale. Imagine, in dream walking through Palace of Knossos. Frescoes glow, columns rise, laughter echoes. Suddenly ground shakes, horizon flashes, wave roars higher than walls. You run but corridors flood, frescoes dissolve, columns topple. In moments, palace is ruin beneath sea. You awaken but realize dream is memory of thousands who lived it. Their empire erased in day, yet their story preserved in myth. The ocean remembers what empire forgot. That permanence is illusion. In your own life, too, you build empires, not of stone but of ambition. Careers, reputations, relationships. You believe them stable, eternal. Then wave comes, crisis, illness, loss. Ambitions crumble, certainties drown. You grieve, but you also learn. You learn that empire was never eternal, that permanence was illusion. Tragedy humbles but also frees, reminding you to build not only on stone but on spirit. For spirit cannot drown. The ocean's most tragic days, when waves erased empires, are lessons written in salt. They teach humility to rulers, resilience to survivors, perspective to descendants. Empires rise, empires fall, but ocean remains patient, eternal, indifferent. To live wisely is to honor its scale, to respect its power, to accept impermanence. The sea erases, but in erasing it also reveals truth, that only meaning endures, not monuments. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine empires beneath waves, columns covered in coral, thrones buried in sand, coins resting in silt. They are not gone, they are transformed, their pride drowned, their meaning preserved. The ocean erased them, but in erasing, it taught lesson humanity must never forget. The relationship between humanity and the ocean has never been purely material. It is not only about trade, food, or conquest. It is spiritual. The sea has always been mirror of the divine, vast and unknowable, promising blessing yet threatening judgment. For countless civilizations, water was not just element but sacred force, a god to be worshipped or appeased. Yet there have been days when that god betrayed, when ocean rose to drown temples, destroy shrines, silence choirs. These were not just natural disasters but crises of faith. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell of moments when waves not only erased cities but also shook heavens, forcing believers to ask, where was the divine when waters rose? The biblical flood is first and most famous. The story of Noah is told not only in Judeo-Christian tradition but echoed in Gilgamesh, in Hindu scriptures, in myths of China, in legends of Native Americans. Always same pattern. Humanity strays, gods decide, ocean rises. The flood is not only destruction but judgment, humanity punished by sea unleashed. For survivors it is not mere catastrophe but divine revelation. Water is power of God, both cleansing and cruel. Whether historical or allegorical, story reveals truth that floods were interpreted as sacred messages, tragedies reframed as theology. But there are recorded tragedies too. In 1755, Lisbon earthquake produced tsunami that struck during Holy Mass on All Saints' Day. Churches collapsed upon worshippers, altars swept by water, thousands drowned. Survivors staggered among ruins, asking how God could allow sacred day to become massacre. Philosophers like Voltaire turned catastrophe into argument against providence, challenging centuries of faith. The ocean's wave was not only physical but intellectual, shaking confidence in divine order. A single day's tragedy rewrote Europe's relationship with theology. Japan, too, knew such crisis. Temples along Sanriku coast stood for centuries, their bells tolling faith. Then in 869 and again in later centuries, tsunamis surged inland, washing away monasteries, drowning monks, sweeping statues of Buddha to sea. Survivors carved warnings into stone, declaring that faith alone was not enough, humility before sea required. Their tragedy was not only loss of life, but recognition that even God seemed silent before tide. The ocean humbled not only rulers but saints. In India, Dwarka holds similar tale. Believed to be city of Krishna, it was said to have been drowned after his departure. For believers, this was not mere flood but cosmic transition. Yet beneath myth lies memory of catastrophe. Temples erased, worshippers drowned, faith tested. Even today, pilgrims light lamps to honor drowned city, faith transformed by tragedy into ritual of endurance. Ocean claimed temples, but it could not extinguish devotion. Philosophically, these days reveal paradox. Catastrophe destroys but also deepens faith. For some, flood proves God's absence. For others, it proves God's mystery. For some, drowned temple means abandonment. For others, it means test. Ocean's tragedies force humanity to confront fragility of meaning, to decide whether faith is built upon permanence of stone or resilience of spirit. To survive spiritually is to build upon ladder. Imagine and dream standing in cathedral by sea. Bells ring, candles flicker, voices rise in hymn. Suddenly ground shakes, horizon rises, water roars into nave. Candles extinguish, voices drown, altar swept away. Silence falls, holy space erased. You feel despair, but then you see survivors gathering outside, lighting small candle upon rock. They sing softly, faith trembling but alive. You realize that temple was drowned but spirit endured. This is essence. Ocean destroys form but cannot drown meaning. In your own life too, floods come that test faith. Not of religion only, but of trust, love, hope. When crisis arrives, when dreams drown, when silence falls, you ask, where is meaning? It is tempting to despair, to see flood as betrayal. But like survivors, you can light candle in ruins, choosing to rebuild faith not in permanence, but in resilience. Flood becomes teacher, faith becomes deeper. So tonight, as you close eyes, imagine waves crashing not as punishment, but as challenge. They strip illusions, they test devotion, they reveal whether your faith is stone or spirit. The most tragic days when floods drown temples are also days when humanity discovered truth, that meaning is not in walls but in will, not in shrines but in hearts. The ocean tests faith, but it also refines it, burning away illusions with salt. For as long as humans have fought wars, the ocean has been battlefield and burial ground. Kings and emperors who believed they commanded destiny sent fleets across waters, only to watch ambitions sink with masts. When armies drown, the tragedy is multiplied, for it is not only soldiers who perish, but nations that falter, strategies that collapse, histories that are rewritten. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell of battles where waves claimed more lives than swords, where armies marched toward horizon and never returned, where ocean wrote outcome of wars in foam and silence. Ancient history already gives us such scenes. The Persian invasion of Greece in 4th century BCE saw thousands of ships massed to conquer. At Artemisium and Salamis men fought with steel, but storms claimed more than weapons. Herodotus describes waves scattering Persian fleet before battle even began, drowning warriors who never saw enemy. For Persians it was defeat by nature, not Greeks, ocean itself ally of Athens. To families waiting at home, difference mattered little, sons drowned all the same. The sea decided politics of continent. Centuries later, Romans too lost legions to waves. In 260 BCE during First Punic War, Roman fleet of hundreds of ships was destroyed by storm off Sicily, tens of thousands of soldiers drowned. Rome had believed itself invincible with new navy, yet ocean humbled it instantly. Chroniclers describe wreckage covering sea, corpses filling shore, empire shaken. Rome endured, but lesson was clear. Legions may conquer land, but ocean cannot be commanded. The Middle Ages saw similar tragedies. In 1274, French King Louis IX led crusade to Tunis. Fleet struck by storm near Sardinia. Thousands drowned. Campaign collapsed before it began. Later, Mongols attempted invasion of Japan in late 13th century. Their fleets vast, armies fierce, yet typhoons struck, scattering ships, drowning tens of thousands. Japanese called them divine winds, kamikaze, saving nation. For Mongol mothers, however, they were tragedies. Sons perished not in glorious battle but in storm. Ocean became graveyard of armies, rewriting fate of empires. Even modern times saw such losses. In 1744, Spanish treasure fleet struck hurricane near Florida. Hundreds of sailors drowned, empire weakened by loss of wealth and men. In World War II, Pacific became greatest graveyard of armies. Battleships torpedoed, aircraft carriers sunk, submarines crushed, soldiers drowned by thousands. The sinking of Yamato in 1945 claimed over 3,000 lives in single hour, ocean swallowing mightiest battleship ever built. Survivors described fire, smoke, screams, then silence, wreck vanishing beneath waves. Ambition of empire ended in saltwater grave. Philosophically, Armies drowned at sea reveal futility of war before scale of nature. Men march believing cause eternal, rulers send fleets believing empire invincible, yet storm or wave erases in heartbeat. The ocean cares nothing for flags, ideologies, borders. It drowns Persians and Romans, Crusaders and Mongols, Spaniards and Japanese alike. Its message is equality in death, humility before tide. The tragedy lies not only in loss of life, but in futility of ambition undone by indifference. Imagine in dreams standing upon cliff as storm brews. Below you thousands of ships stretch horizon, sails proud, drums beating. Suddenly sky blackens, wind roars, waves rise. One by one ships capsize, masts snap, men vanish. Hours later, horizon empty, sea calm, only foam and debris. You realize armies march not to enemy but to abyss. The ocean was battlefield and victor both. You awaken, heart heavy, but dream is memory of history repeated. In your own life two armies march, not of soldiers but of ambitions. Projects, plans, identities sent forth confidently, fleets of hope. Storms of circumstance arrive, waves drown them, leaving only fragments. You grieve, but you also learn. You learn that ambition must bow to humility, that control is illusion, that permanence fragile. Tragedy humbles but also teaches. You cannot command ocean. You can only navigate with respect. So tonight, as you close eyes, imagine ocean calm but vast. Beneath surface lie armies drowned, soldiers who marched for kings, dreams that sank in storms. They are silent, but they teach. They teach that war is fragile, ambition fleeting, empire temporary. The ocean remains, patient, eternal, indifferent. The most tragic days when armies drowned are reminders not only of loss but of futility, truth whispered by waves for those willing to listen. The ocean is home as much as it is frontier. For coastal peoples it is cradle, provider, road, protector. Yet there are days when it seems to turn against its own children, when fishermen, divers, sailors who honored and depended on sea were devoured by it. These tragedies are intimate because they are betrayals. Warriors may fall in foreign lands, empires may crumble far from homes, but when the very water that fed and sheltered generations suddenly kills, grief is sharper, more personal. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell of times when the sea claimed its most devoted servants, leaving communities in despair and silence. Consider the story of Newfoundland fishermen in 19th century. Each year fleets sailed to Grand Banks, rich with cod. They honored sea with rituals, songs, prayers, trusting it as partner. Yet storms swept suddenly, icebergs loomed unseen, fog disoriented. Thousands of men were lost across decades, leaving widows and orphans along coasts. Villages where half the men vanished overnight became known as widows' coves. The sea that sustained them was also the sea that betrayed them. In Japan, ama divers, women who harvested abalone and pearls for centuries, often drowned when currents shifted or storms surged. Communities revered them as symbols of resilience, yet each season claimed lives. Their funerals were held beside same waters they had worked, chants mingling grief with gratitude. The ocean had given pearls but demanded lives. It was exchange impossible to refuse. Iceland, too, tells such tales. Its sagas remember fishermen caught in sudden squalls, entire crews swallowed in hours. Families carved names into driftwood crosses, set them along cliffs, praying for souls. They said ocean turned against them, not out of hatred but out of hunger. To live by sea was to accept that provider could also be predator. Each meal of fish was reminder of price already paid. Modern times are no different. In 1959, storm known as Ash Wednesday swept along American coast, drowning dozens of fishermen. In 2011, Japanese tsunami claimed thousands who lived by fishing. Survivors returned to shore to find harbors wrecked, boats destroyed, generations of tradition erased. Ocean that had defined identity now defined trauma. Philosophically, these tragedies strike deeper because they embody paradox of love and betrayal. To live by sea is to accept both gifts and grief. Fishermen pray before each voyage, yet they know prayer cannot guarantee return. Families wait at shore with both hope and fear. every horizon holding possibility of reunion or loss. The tragedy lies not in ignorance but in intimacy. Victims knew ocean best, yet ocean still claimed them. Imagine in dreams standing upon cliff at dawn. Below, fishermen prepare boats, children wave, wives sing blessings, nets are cast, sails unfurl. Hours later storm rises, boats vanish, horizon empties. Families stand on same cliff, singing turns to wailing. The ocean has turned against its own. You awaken, feeling weight of their grief, realizing this is memory repeated countless times in countless villages. In your own life too, there are oceans you trust, forces you rely upon, relationships or careers you believe will sustain you, yet sometimes they turn, betraying. Job collapses, friend abandons, system fails. You feel same grief of betrayal, loss of faith. But as with fishermen, you continue, because to abandon ocean is to abandon life. You learn to live with paradox, provider and predator, love and loss, trust and risk. This is truth of existence. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine waves, gentle yet honest. They whisper, I will give, but I may also take. To love me is to accept risk. To live is to accept paradox. The most tragic days when ocean turned against its own. Remind us not of hatred but of truth, that every gift carries risk, that every bond carries fragility, that life itself is bargain with impermanence. The ocean is patient but never passive. For centuries people have built their lives upon its edges, confident that stone walls, harbors, and levees could keep it at bay. Cities rose as jewels along coastlines, thriving on trade and beauty, their plazas filled with markets, temples, laughter, music. Yet there have been days when the ocean surged without mercy, when streets became rivers, when houses floated like driftwood, when towers toppled, when entire cities drowned in hours. These are tragedies vast in scale, because they are not only destruction of homes but erasure of collective identity, archives of culture, centuries of memory washed away in a single tide. The city of Alexandria once glittered as beacon of ancient world. Founded by Alexander, it was library of knowledge, port of empire, crossroads of civilizations. Yet, in year 365 CE, an earthquake struck and tsunami followed. Waves flooded harbor, ships smashed against walls, markets swept clean, thousands drowned. Survivors staggered through ruins, mourning not only dead but manuscripts lost, wisdom erased. To lose a city is to lose memory itself, and ocean claimed both bodies and books. Alexandria endured, but scar remained, reminder that even centers of world could be humbled in heartbeat. In 17th century, Jakarta was struck repeatedly by floods that erased neighborhoods. Colonial powers built canals, dikes, yet water returned with fury. Each tragedy claimed hundreds, sometimes thousands, their houses sinking into muddy tide. For rulers it was logistical crisis, for families it was devastation. Children drowned in their beds, elders swept from porches, daily life transformed into chaos. City survived, but trauma became part of its rhythm, ocean always looming as enemy at gates. Lisbon's tragedy in 1755 remains one of most haunting. Earthquake shook city, fires ignited, then tsunami swept in. Churches collapsed upon worshippers, marketplaces drowned, palaces shattered, tens of thousands died. Survivors wandered among ruins, asking whether God had abandoned them. Philosophers debated meaning of suffering. Voltaire wrote with bitterness, faith shaken across Europe. Lisbon's drowning was not only local but continental, its tragedy echoing in thought and literature for centuries. The ocean's wave carried philosophical consequences as heavy as corpses it bore. In modern era, tsunamis have swallowed cities with equal cruelty. In 1896, Sanriku in Japan was devastated, over 20,000 drowned. Eyewitnesses describe boats hurled onto roofs, families swept away while clinging to each other, entire streets erased. In 2004, Indian Ocean tsunami erased Banda Aceh, Phuket, Colombo, entire coastlines. Cities that had stood for centuries were gone in hours. Survivors described silence afterward, as if world itself stunned. For them, tragedy was not history but breath, moment when life turned into graveyard. Philosophically, drowned cities embody fragility of civilization. We believe urban walls, culture, technology create permanence. We write charters, build monuments, declare cities eternal. Yet ocean shows they are as fragile as sandcastles. Streets filled with history can vanish. Archives of knowledge drowned. Temples reduced to silt. Tragedy lies not only in bodies lost, but in erasure of collective identity, memory drowned with stone. Yet even here continuity emerges. Survivors rebuild, memory persists, culture adapts. Drowned city becomes scar but also story, shaping future identity. Imagine and dream walking through bustling square. Merchants call, children laugh, bells ring. Suddenly horizon darkens, water surges, square becomes river. Stalls swept away, children vanish, bells silenced. Hours later, city gone, silence vast. You awaken but dream is memory of Lisbon, Alexandria, Sanriku, Banda Aceh. You realize truth, no city eternal, all built upon fragile edge. In your own life too, there are cities you build, not of stone but of meaning. Careers, reputations, communities. You believe them permanent, yet wave can come, crisis or loss, erasing. It feels like betrayal, like identity drowned. Yet survivors teach, rebuild, adapt, carry memory. Drowned city becomes scar but also foundation. You are not only victim of wave but storyteller of survival. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine cities beneath sea. Streets covered with coral, statues resting in sand, temples silent. They are drowned, yet they are not forgotten. They whisper through myths, through ruins, through survivors. The ocean swallowed them, but in swallowing, it also preserved them as eternal stories. The most tragic days when ocean swallowed cities remind us of fragility, but also of resilience, lesson written in tides, to live humbly yet courageously upon shore. The most devastating tragedies of the ocean are not always the roar of waves or the crash of ships. Sometimes they are found in the silence that follows. After storms have passed, after cities have drowned, after fleets have vanished, there is a quiet more haunting than thunder. Survivors step into this silence and realize that world they knew has been erased. Streets are empty, fields flooded, families gone. It is the silence of absence, of names no longer spoken, of songs interrupted forever. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell not only of violence but of aftermath, when sea withdraws and leaves behind emptiness. Consider aftermath of Krakatoa in 1883. Explosion shattered island, tsunami followed, and when it was over, entire coastlines were silent. Survivors described walking through villages where only dogs howled, temples empty, marketplaces deserted. They said air smelled of sulfur and death, silence pressing upon ears. For years afterward, ocean itself seemed quiet, as if exhausted by rage. But for people, silence was reminder of voices lost, families erased. The tragedy was not only in moment of eruption but in decades of absence that followed. In 2004, Indian Ocean tsunami survivors described same silence. After waves withdrew, there were no birds, no children, no traffic. Only debris and corpses, only quiet broken by sobs. Journalists recorded survivors saying silence was worse than waves, because it revealed scale of loss. A town alive with thousands reduced to whispers of few. That silence was tragedy as profound as water, absence speaking louder than roar. Lisbon, too, knew silence. After earthquake and tsunami fires burned, then silence settled over ruins. Survivors wrote letters describing streets so quiet that footsteps echoed where once carriages roared. They said silence was unbearable because it was memory of voices missing. The ocean had drowned sound itself, and silence became scar across generations. Philosophically, silence after storm reveals truth of tragedy. Violence itself is overwhelming, but it is aftermath that wounds deepest. We measure loss not only by destruction but by absence of presence. A storm lasts hours, but silence lasts years. It enters culture, shaping rituals, songs, literature. Survivors live with it daily, carrying silence within. That is why myths often speak of ghosts, Voices still heard upon waves. They are attempts to fill silence with meaning, to replace absence with presence, even if spectral. Imagine in dream walking through city drowned. Water receded, sun shines, but streets empty. Doors hang open, toys float, bells silent. You call, but no one answers. Silence presses, heavy, suffocating. You awaken, heart racing. But dream is memory of countless who lived it. For them, silence was most haunting wave. In your own life, too, there are silences after storms. After argument ends, after loved one gone, after dream fails. Violence of event passes, but silence remains. You wait for call that never comes, hear absence where laughter once was. That silence is ocean of grief. Yet, within it lies possibility, space to rebuild, to honor memory, to transform absence into legacy. It is painful, but it is path to resilience. Cultures respond to silence with rituals. In Japan, survivors plant trees where tsunamis struck, letting silence grow into forest. In India, survivors build temples upon ruins, filling silence with prayer. In Europe, survivors compose requiems, silence becoming music. These acts do not erase loss, but transform silence into remembrance. The ocean left void, but humanity filled it with meaning. So, tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine silence not as void, but as canvas. Ocean roars, then withdraws, leaving you space. You may feel absence, grief, emptiness, but you can also paint memory upon silence, honor loss, rebuild meaning. The most tragic days when silence fell after storm remind us that survival is not only endurance of wave, but endurance of absence. To live is to face silence and choose to fill it with love. Among all the cruelties the sea can inflict, perhaps the most unbearable is its silence when asked to return what it has taken. For families who lose loved ones to storm or shipwreck, grief is sharpened by absence of body. On land, mourning is accompanied by ritual, graves, final embraces. At sea, the ocean often keeps its dead, swallowing them into depths where no hand can reach, no eye can see. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell of times when it refused to yield its victims, when survivors stood on shore, staring at horizon, waiting for faces that never returned. This is ancient grief, older than writing. Homer's epics describe sailors lost without burial, their souls wandering restless. Norse sagas speak of men who vanished into fjords, no cairns to mark their memory. Polynesian chants remember brothers swept by tide, never found. In every culture, stories emerge not only of drowning but of absence, of ocean's refusal to release. It is cruelty unique to sea, loss without closure. Consider Titanic. Over 1,500 perished, but fewer than a third recovered. Families waited for weeks, scanning newspapers, hoping for miracle. Many never knew fate of loved ones, never saw body, never held funeral. Survivors spoke of names called into night, unanswered forever. Ocean kept majority, burying them 2 miles deep. Their absence became part of story, grief multiplied by mystery. In World War II, submarines sank silently, taking entire crews with them. Families received telegrams, missing in action, presumed dead. No bodies, no graves, only memory. In Japan, mothers gathered at shore, bowing toward sea, offering prayers to waves that held sons. In Britain, widows stood by harbors, scanning empty horizon. The ocean had consumed husbands, fathers, brothers, and it refused to return them. These tragedies filled generations with unresolved sorrow. Even natural disasters left same wounds. In 2004 tsunami, many bodies swept to sea, never found. Families placed empty coffins in cemeteries, symbolic graves for absent loved ones. Survivors said emptiness worse than death, because without body, grief cannot settle. Rituals designed for closure collapse when ocean keeps what it takes. Philosophically, this tragedy reveals human need for presence in absence. We crave body, grave, ritual, because they allow us to believe loss has boundary. Ocean denies boundary, leaving loss infinite. Families cannot point to stone and say, "Here lies." Instead, they point to horizon and whisper name, knowing ocean is grave too vast. It is unbearable, yet it is truth. Ocean silence is part of its nature. It takes, it holds, it does not explain. Yet cultures have created rituals to confront this refusal. In Greece, families pour libations into sea, believing drink will reach drowned souls. In Polynesia, names of lost are chanted upon shore, voice bridging gap. In Catholic tradition, masses held for those without bodies, prayers filling void. In modern times, cenotaphs built, monuments carved with names, substitutes for absent graves. Humanity answers ocean silence with creativity, transforming absence into remembrance. Imagine and dream, standing upon shore at twilight. Families gather, holding candles, whispering names of those never returned. They release flowers upon water, petals drifting out, carried into horizon. You realize ocean will not return bodies, but it carries flowers as offerings, gestures of love. You feel grief, but also recognition. Absence cannot be erased, but it can be honored. In your own life, too, there are losses that offer no closure. Friend gone without goodbye, dream ending without reason, love vanishing without explanation. You crave answer, but silence remains. Like families waiting at shore, you face horizon of absence. Yet you too can create ritual, honoring without closure, remembering without body. To live is to accept some losses remain mysteries, some grief eternal. Yet love endures even without presence. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine ocean vast, silent, holding countless absent. It will not return them, but it carries memory. You too can carry memory, transforming absence into presence within. The most tragic days when ocean refused to give back dead are reminders of fragility, but also of endurance, of love that persists, even in silence, even in absence, even in depth. There are tragedies where loss is instant, waves devouring bodies in sight of all. But there are others more insidious, where the sea toys with survivors, offering glimpses of salvation, then snatching them away. The cruelest days are those when hope rises like a sail on horizon only to be shredded by wind, when families wait on shore for weeks or months believing loved ones will return, when debris drifts back to coast giving illusion of life while truth lies beneath waves. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell of the torment of false hope, when the line between survival and death blurred until hearts broke under uncertainty. Consider the mystery of the Franklin expedition in 19th century. 2 ships set to find Northwest Passage vanished into Arctic. For years, families waited, governments searched, rumors spread of survivors living among Inuit, of camps hidden on ice. But ships had been trapped, crews starving, some resorting to cannibalism before dying. Decades passed before wrecks found. Families endured not one moment of grief, but decades of uncertainty. Ocean did not kill swiftly. It killed with silence that fed false hope. Survivors never returned, but hope kept returning like tide, prolonging tragedy beyond measure. The Bermuda Triangle has similar reputation, with ships and planes vanishing mysteriously. Families left behind clung to rumors of survivors on islands, yet wrecks rarely recovered. Whether myth or misinterpretation, pain is real, hope rising then drowning again and again. To wait endlessly for return that never comes is torment deeper than drowning. Ocean played tricks, offering no closure, feeding speculation, prolonging grief. In World War I and II, countless ships reported missing, telegrams sent, presumed lost. But without wreckage, families clung to hope. Mothers set tables for sons who never arrived. Wives stood at harbors scanning horizon. Sometimes survivors appeared months later, rescued, fueling belief that all could be saved. But for most, ocean kept truth hidden. Each false hope was another wound, grief delayed, never healed. Philosophically, false hope is cruelty unique to ocean because of its vastness and mystery. A piece of wreckage floats ashore, interpreted as sign. A rumor spreads, believed as truth. The line between faith and delusion blurs. Tragedy lies not only in death but in prolonged suffering of those who wait. Hope itself becomes torment, gift turned poison. Imagine in dreams standing on shore, eyes fixed on horizon. Each day sun rises, you wait, Each day tide brings driftwood, shoes, letters. You interpret as sign they live. Weeks pass, months, years, until truth undeniable. But by then grief doubled, because it was lived daily. The ocean killed not once but endlessly. Each sunrise another wound. You awaken, heart heavy, but dream is memory of countless who waited in vain. In your own life too there are oceans of false hope, relationships you believed would return, jobs you thought would revive, dreams you convinced yourself still alive. For months or years you carry them, waiting, hoping, only to realize silence is truth. The cruelty is not in loss but in prolonging. Yet wisdom lies in learning to release, to accept absence, to let hope transform into memory, not prison. Cultures have addressed false hope with rituals of waiting. In Japan, women of drowned fishermen wore black not immediately but after years, acknowledging hope before grief. In Mediterranean villages, widows were called half-widows, living between states, until time forced decision. These rituals recognized cruelty of uncertainty, giving structure to endless waiting. Humanity sought to contain torment with tradition, though never perfectly. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine horizon wide, endless. Ships vanish, planes disappear. Survivors wait. Hope rises like wave, crashes like surf, again and again. It is torment, but it is also testimony to love. We hope because we love. We wait because we cannot release easily. The most tragic days when ocean played tricks with hope remind us of cost of love, fragility of certainty, cruelty of silence. Yet they also remind us that to love is to risk, to hope even when sea conceals truth. The ocean often signals its fury. Storm clouds gather, winds howl, tides withdraw before tsunamis. Yet there are days when sea gives no warning, when it looks calm even as death rises beneath surface, when communities live in trust only to be betrayed in heartbeat. These are among the cruelest tragedies because they allow no preparation, no farewell, no resistance. Families eating suppers suddenly swept away. Sailors laughing on deck swallowed in seconds. Children playing by shore lost in instant. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell of moments when death arrived unannounced, when sea shifted from friend to executioner without transition. In ancient Hellenic, citizens celebrated festival of Poseidon, feasting, dancing, worshipping. Earthquake struck suddenly, ground shook, waters surged, cities sank in night. No warnings, no omens beyond tremor seconds before catastrophe. People who had raised cups to sea were drowned by it. For centuries ruins lay beneath lagoon, fish swimming among columns where laughter once rang. It was not slow tragedy but instant betrayal. A city claimed before it understood. Consider also Stromboli and other volcanic islands of Mediterranean. Fishermen set nets, families cooked meals, then eruptions tore sky, tsunamis followed, sweeping coasts. Survivors spoke of seconds between calm and chaos, of mothers screaming as waves took children before they could rise. Such absence of warning deepens trauma, because there is no chance to flee, no chance to fight, only helplessness. In 1958, Lituya Bay in Alaska witnessed mega tsunami, wave taller than skyscrapers. It struck without warning, triggered by landslide, sweeping away trees, boats, lives. Survivors described calm minutes before, then roar, then annihilation. Boats capsized instantly, men vanished. Only few lived to tell. Their voices described surreal shift from ordinary day to apocalypse in heartbeats. Even in modern times, technology cannot always prevent. Rogue waves appear suddenly, walls of water rising from calm sea, smashing tankers and cruise ships. Sailors describe blue sky above, gentle swells, then giant wave towering without warning. Lives lost not to storm but to sudden betrayal. Families never understand, because weather reports show calm, yet loved ones drowned. Ocean proves itself beyond prediction, beyond certainty. Philosophically, tragedies without warning reveal fragility of human confidence. We live believing patterns protect us, science predicts, rituals guard. Yet ocean reminds us some forces remain beyond foresight. We are fragile not only before fury but before unpredictability. That unpredictability is terror because it denies control. It whispers that death may come anytime, not scheduled, not announced. It forces us to live with awareness of impermanence. Imagine in dreams standing on shore. Children play, laughter rings, waves gentle. Suddenly horizon tilts, water rises, roar shatters peace. In seconds, children gone, laughter silenced, day transformed into nightmare. You awaken breathless, realizing dream is memory repeated across centuries. Countless families lived that shift from joy to grief without warning. In your own life, too, tragedies strike without preparation. Phone call, diagnosis, betrayal, accident. You wake in morning believing day, ordinary. By evening, life changed forever. These moments wound deepest because they offer no chance to prepare, no farewell. Yet they also teach. Nothing certain, every moment precious. To live fully is to accept impermanence, to cherish ordinary because it may vanish without warning. Cultures respond to sudden tragedies with memorials, anniversaries, storytelling. Survivors repeat tales not only to mourn but to remind others, do not assume tomorrow, respect fragility, honor moment. In Japan, tsunami stones carved centuries ago warned descendants where not to build because sudden waves erased villages. In Pacific, chants recall days when calm seas betrayed, teaching children humility. Humanity transforms unpredictability into wisdom, building resilience from helplessness. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine ocean vast, calm, beautiful. It may rise, it may remain still. You cannot know. This is tragedy and truth. The most tragic days when ocean took without warning remind us not to trust permanence, not to cling to certainty, but to live humbly, gratefully, fully. Because sea may take in heartbeat, yet life lived deeply cannot be erased. The story of the ocean's most tragic days is not only about drowning and destruction. It is about memory. Every wave that has taken lives has also left stories, rituals, lessons. The sea erases bodies, cities, empires, but it cannot erase meaning because humanity insists on remembering. The final tragedy of the ocean would not be a storm or a flood, but forgetting. To tell of the ocean's most tragic days is to tell of our refusal to forget, our stubbornness to honor even when salt has swallowed everything. From the ruins of Atlantis, whether myth or memory, we still speak of hubris and fall. From Helaik we learn that devotion to gods does not guarantee safety. From Lisbon we inherit philosophy, questioning providence. From Krakatoa we remember power of fire and water entwined. From Titanic we recall pride undone, technology humbled. From tsunamis of Japan and Indonesia we remember fragility of coast, necessity of warning, value of humility. Each tragedy became story, each story became ritual, each ritual became thread in tapestry of culture. The ocean destroyed, but in destroying it planted seeds of memory. Memory is not passive. It is act of defiance. Families who lost children to waves still tell names at tables, refusing to let silence erase them. Nations build walls of stone engraved with names of drowned, cenotaphs for absent bodies. Songs composed, prayers whispered, lanterns floated. We reclaim meaning by telling. Philosophically, memory transforms tragedy into wisdom. Without memory, pain is waste. With memory, pain becomes teacher. Survivors of tsunamis teach children where to run, mark stones where waves reached, embed trauma into architecture. Divers exploring wrecks bring back artifacts, letting museums speak. Writers turn grief into poems, philosophers into questions, priests into sermons. Memory ensures that death is not end but continuation, not silence but dialogue. Imagine in dreams standing upon shore at night. Waves lap gently, stars shine. You hold lantern, release it upon tide. It drifts, glowing, joining hundreds of others. Each lantern is story, each light a life lost. The ocean carries them outward, yet from shore you see constellation of memory floating. You realize tragedy has been transformed. Ocean remains vast, indifferent, but you have answered indifference with remembrance. That is humanity's power. In your own life, too, tragedies will come. Storms without warning, losses without closure, hopes drowned. You cannot stop them, but you can remember. You can tell stories, honor names, carry lessons. Your grief can become wisdom. Your silence can become song. That is how you resist ocean's final cruelty. That is how you ensure tragedy does not win. The most tragic days of the ocean, then, are also the most human. They reveal fragility, yes, but also resilience. They drown, but they also inspire. They silence, but they also provoke poetry. The ocean is teacher as much as executioner, sculptor of meaning as much as destroyer of stone. Its waves have erased empires, yet they have carved wisdom deeper than any monument. So tonight, as you close your eyes, let memory drift like tide. Let stories of drowned cities, lost children, sunken ships, vanished islands flow through you not as despair but as reminder. Reminder that life is fragile, that arrogance is punished, that humility is strength, that remembrance is survival. The ocean's most tragic days are not merely in past. They are warnings for future, mirrors for present, teachers for all time. And as you drift toward sleep, remember this final truth. The ocean may take, but it also teaches. It may drown, but it also preserves. It may humble, but it also inspires. Its most tragic days are humanity's most enduring lessons, written in salt, remembered in song, carried forward in silence and in story. To live wisely is to listen to those lessons, to walk humbly by shore, to honor fragility, to love fully knowing waves may rise. The ocean is eternal, and so too must be our memory.